Alright, welcome everybody. This is Wednesday night. Ksiva Tova to everyone. We like to learn on Wednesday night thanks to the encouragement of someone on this many years ago. It took a little while for me to do it. I think it was Keter Furnishings, something like that, asked me to teach the Noam Elimelech. And here we are. We've been keeping it up for a couple of years, I think. So we're in the book of Deuteronomy, Parshas Shoftim. Yom Shoftim, what does it say? Judges. The Heilige Elimelech explains the Hine, behold, for behold. Yesh Shnei Tzadikim, there are two archetypes of saints. Yesh Tzadik Shuchel, Lifol HaKol Yidei Diborei HaKadosh, Ve'enoi Tzorech Kol Kach Lazoik L'Spalal. It's one type of saint that can accomplish everything just with his holy words. He doesn't need to cry out and pray with tremendous feeling, because he is so in tune to holiness that he is kind of, going with the flow of the Torah, and he is able to just accomplish everything. That he could even just, not only just learning Torah, he could just have a regular conversation, right? And make a comment in the conversation that indicates a wish for a blessing and doesn't seem so obvious. Of course, he prays 3 times a day, he follows the Jewish law, but he doesn't have to go and scream and daven very long. You see certain tzaddikim, they daven very quickly. The Gera Hasidim, the Shemona Esrei takes like 30 seconds, and there's nothing wrong with that. Did they say the words? I guess so. That's all that matters, right? They fulfilled their religious obligation, and the same thing, the derech of the Ger Tzadikim is just to give very simple blessings, not to get too emotional, not to get too excited. And then the other tzaddikim have a different derech. In Stolen they scream everything, and the Rebbe doesn't. Interesting. The Hasidim, they scream the whole davening. Not the Shemona Esrei, of course. Davening isn't very long, but it's very, and square, it's like a sing-song type of a davening, and they have, and it does take a little bit longer, and all the different communities, they have a different derech, but it's all the same. But a lot of times, you'll see a tzaddik, he'll make some comment, even just tell a joke or tell a story, and the power of that story, meaning, especially like Motzei Shabbos, tzaddikim, they tell stories of tzaddikim, and they'll tell a story. Someone needs a shidduch, and they'll tell a story about someone getting a shidduch. Someone needs parnasa, they'll tell a story of someone getting parnasa. And they don't even have to say, "Oh, Rabbeinu Shalom, give this person tzedakah." Just by telling the story, they bring down that energy and accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. Why? In other ways, keep diburei oiseroishim, because his words make an impact, they leave an impression. And they're able to hold back the strict judgments, that they shouldn't come at all. And part of it is that the Mekatrigim, the Satan, who's the prosecuting attorney in heaven, might not even realize what this person is doing. Right? When you're going and you're davening and you're putting on a big show, then you're gonna. There's a whole thing of iyun tefillah that you're not supposed to look so carefully into your davening and expect it to come true, because then they might look at you and say, well, what did you do to deserve it, and what did you do not to deserve it, and this and that. But when it's being presented not as a prayer, but rather as it's telling a story. But that energy of the power of storytelling is a type of an archetype of this, and this is something lahavdil we find in other traditions. I work in chaplaincy and I see, the Native Americans, the lore, the storytelling. It's not just to give over and teach the lesson, but it's a devotion. And the same thing, some of these other communities, they'll tell their stories of their mythology and whatever, and it's more than just teaching the mythology, it's more than just teaching the moral lesson of the mythology. It comes down to actually expressing a conduit of energy in a ritualistic sense and in a psychological, archetypical sense. And so too, even with more than just stories. It's just conversations, going and having a conversation with somebody, more than just the good advice and the encouragement. There's a flow of energy that's passed on to those who listen to the story, or who are engaged in the conversation, or whatever. And the same thing with learning. We know Reb Nachman Breslover said you should make every Torah teaching into a prayer. Right? I recently saw from the Sklener Rebbe's that everything you do could be Torah. You come across an opportunity to commit a sin, and you say, I'm not going to do this because it says you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't lie, and it's written in the Torah, like Signov, right? Someone is faced with a challenge in business, an opportunity to do something wrong, and he doesn't do it, and he says to himself, I'm not doing this because it's written in the Torah, lo signov, thou shalt not steal. So I'm not going to steal because it's written in the Torah, thou shalt not steal. So he says, that's what it means in Pirkei Avos, you have a Talmud Torah and Derech Eretz, that the Torah study is good with Derech Eretz, with making a living, meaning that when you're in the middle of a job and you have an opportunity to do something wrong, and you don't do the wrong thing, when you work on both of them, it makes you forget sin, meaning you're not going to sin. So that's the power. Right, and again, like we're saying, but when it's not, when it's a hidden type of devotion, it's not an obvious mitzvah like davening or learning, like prayer or study, but rather it's just having a conversation, right? That the secular conversations of Torah scholars needs to be studied. The Amr Inshi, right? There's sayings that the Chazal quote, and since they're brought in the Gemara, it becomes Torah. And that's a tremendous power. I know Reb Tzadok talks about this. I heard that from Rabbi Olbaum and Shlita. Anyway, V'yesh Tzadik she'ena b'madrega zu, There's another type of saint that's not on such a level. And he does have to pray and cry out to the blessed Lord until the blessed Lord hears his prayer. That's what it says, that the eyes of the Lord are on the saints, on the righteous people, the tzaddikim, and his ears are to their cries, because eyes are higher than ears, as is known. But tzaddik asher hagia al madrega elyoina, and the saint who gets to that higher level, asher Hashem yisbarach mashgiach alav ve'ein pekicha, where the blessed Lord's divine providence is with an open eye, then he accomplishes everything through this divine providence. That God has divine providence over his words and his actions, even just the way he moves his hands, something like that. And that actually, the person almost, in a sense, he loses he cancels himself, he loses his own self-identity, and rather becomes a conduit for God to work through him. That's the concept of bittul. It's very similar to Havdil in Taoism, how they talk of surrendering yourself to the Tao and letting the Tao flow through you. The Torah and the Kodesh Baruch Hu and the Klal Yisrael are all one. And if you have these together, you're also going with that flow and letting go and letting God. But you have to be on a certain spiritual level where your automatic ways are in tune with the Torah. And we daven for that. We say v'sargi leinu b'sarasecha, right? We should become rogel, which is a cognitive regular. We should develop habits of it within Torah, within halacha, walking the path of Torah and Yiras Shamayim, Torah and the fear of heaven. Piety to the point where it's an effortless, natural letting go and letting God. I was talking to a Christian today at work, and he was saying, "Oh, you guys, you have so many laws," and he wasn't being disrespectful. And he's like, "It's impossible." That's what the Christians believe, but it's not impossible. It's It's in your mouth and in your heart to do it. Deuteronomy says, "It's not too difficult. It's not too far away." But not only that, but when you develop the habits of adhering to halacha, it becomes second nature. All right, so then you have other challenges you have to deal with, right? But the regular frum person doesn't drive by McDonald's and think, I really want to go in there and get a cheeseburger, but I know I'm not supposed to. Even though the Ramban says a person should think like that. That's not the way the average frum person thinks. To the point where I remember they told us in yeshiva, a regular frum person has given up some of his free will through his good choices. And that's a good thing. And that's what we're talking about here, of God's providence and sovereignty over our actions, that we let go and we let God. But then again, there are other things that people do struggle with, and they have to work on those. But if you can develop the proper habits of not being tempted with these things, it leads us into this world where we have nullified ourselves and can become conduits of God's blessing to the world and fulfill our mission. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Just because we have free will doesn't mean that we have to always exercise it both ways. You can make a decision now that this is how you're going to live. And once you develop the habit it becomes very easy. You know, we don't walk through the meat aisle in Walmart and think, oh, maybe I should buy that ham, that bacon, and cook it up, or the non-kosher beef or chicken. It doesn't cross our minds. It's not like it's a challenge. Once you develop that habit. Now, when you're first starting, it can be very difficult. But then again, like we said, that one everyone has a different challenge. Some people, the challenge is with food, and some people even for 20 years can still be fighting a desire to eat not kosher. And then it might be a different issue that other people struggle with. It might be something that they never even thought of, and then they indulge in and they become addicted. And you have to try to break that addiction. It's difficult, and but it is what it is anyway. But so that's what it says in the Psalms. And I am prayer. King David said, I am prayer. Not just that I pray. Prayer is something I do. Prayer is who I am. And my actions and my essence and my being is a prayer. That I am so devoted to God, and I'm so loyal, and I've nullified myself before God, canceled my own ego in front of God's will, that my everyday actions become unifications and prayers and devotions. But tzaddik shulamata mimadregasu tzarich shavus fila. But if the saint who's on the lower level, the level of the ears, he needs to pray and cry out. Doine Hashem. That's what it says. The eyes of the Lord. That the eyes of the Lord are to the higher saints, and the ears, which is lower level, hears the cry. So that's what it means in Deuteronomy in this week's parsha, that you should give judges and officers in all your gates, and according to your tribes. Tzaloimer means to say shetitin shoftim ke'elu. You should give such judges that can hold back the judgment, that they shouldn't come at all, in all of your gates, the olam hu shel tzaddik, because the world belongs to the saint. That God took advice from the souls of the saints when he did the work of creation, and that's the meaning of let us make a man. Even though God did everything, when it says that he did it, but it says nasa adam, that's one interpretation. And that's the meaning of to your tribes. The word shevet not only means a tribe, it also means a staff, a stick that could hit somebody, that it holds back the stick of judgment. And that's what Isaiah says, that the Lord desires for the sake of his righteousness. Tzaloimer means to say kol ma shechavetz Hashem lasos, that everything that the Lord wants to do, hein rachamim, whether mercy, hein din, whether it's strict judgment, chas v'shalom, God forbid, heaven forfend, peace and pity, hu akolaman sidko. Both sides are for the righteousness of God. They represent that archetype of God's righteousness and saintliness. Sheroitz l'asais tzedakus. Because God wants to do righteousness, God wants to do justice. It's a social justice in the true way, not in the nonsense that they say that it's the opposite of what they're talking about. That it holds back and prevents the damage done by strict judgment by the mercy that is brought with the archetype of the saint, of the tzaddik, of the righteous person. And that is a form of charity and righteousness and justice to the world. With tzaddik, and also to the saint himself, to the tzaddik himself, because in order to accomplish this, he has to rise up to a very high spiritual level. Torah, and that's what Isaiah says, to aggrandize the Torah, the law, and that's what it means in Psalm 23, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The rod is the one that you hit someone with. That's the judgments. And thy staff, which is the shepherd holds up for the sheep to see and follow, and also to kind of guide the sheep without hurting them. That's the archetype of the saints, who hold them back, and they're a source of reliance for us. Shelo Yavayu, that the judgment should not come upon us. Both thy rod and thy staff, they both comfort me. It's easy to understand. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. If you have any questions, any requests, we're here for you. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you, especially you made it all this way. I'm not going to hit that cat. I'm not a big fan of cats, but I don't feel like hitting it. And especially not on Happy Avenue. So anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. And we'll see you later, alligator, after a while, crocodile. How do I turn this thing off?